You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
Hi, and welcome to the Blackest Questions. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Greer, politics editor for theGrio and associate professor of political science at Fordham University. In this podcast, we ask our guests 5 of the Blackest questions so we can learn a little bit more about them and have some fun while we're doing it. We're also going to learn a lot about Black history, past and present. So here's how this works. We have 5 rounds of questions about us, Black history, the entire diaspora, current events, you name it. And with each round, the questions get a little tougher, and the guest has 10 seconds to get it right. If they answer the question correctly, they'll receive 1 symbolic black fist, and they'll hear this. And if they get it wrong, they'll hear this. But we still love them anyway. Our guest for this episode is Dr. Paula Kahumbu, one of the world's most influential conservationists. She spent decades studying animals and is one of the loudest voices when it comes to protecting endangered species and preserving their way of life. She's the CEO of Wildlife Direct, the producer and host of a popular wildlife television series, Wildlife Warriors. She works on award-winning documentaries and holds the title of National Geographic Explorer. She also works closely with the government in Kenya to raise awareness and mobilize legal reforms that protect vulnerable wildlife. Dr. Kahumbu, thank you so much for joining us here at The Blackest Questions. Are you ready to play?
I am. Thank you.
And for our listeners out there, you're in for a real treat. Dr. Kahumbu is from Kenya, so during this episode, you're going to learn a lot about the motherland. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. Are you ready?
I think so.
We think so. I will say this, Dr. Kahumbu, that is everyone's first answer, so you're right on track. Okay, this woman served as the First Lady of Kenya for more than 10 years and is known for voicing her opinion on a number of social issues, including mother and child welfare, education, and animal conservation. Who is she?
She is Margaret Kenyatta.
You are correct. She's married to the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and she served as the First Lady from 2013 to 2022. In 2014, she was named Kenya's Person of the Year, and she headed the Beyond Zero campaign that worked to reduce child maternal mortality rates, and she also helped you spearhead your Hands Off Our Elephants campaign. So, please tell us a little bit more about how that partnership came to be, and tell us a little bit more about what Hands Off Our Elephants campaign is really all about.
You know, when we started raising awareness about the crisis facing elephants in Kenya, it was a gut feeling that what we had been seeing in the media was only a tip of the iceberg. We began to receive reports from the field that elephants were dying all over the place, maybe thousands. And we were getting a lot of pushback from all kinds of government offices. So we went straight to the media and we said, there's definitely more to this story. The media supported us, but the government was really questioning us. And out of the blue, I got a request, an invitation to come to State House to meet Kenya's First Lady, Margaret Kenyatta. I hadn't met her before. And she asked me to come and to explain to her what the problem was. And I came with photographs and information. At that point, we had just started creating graphics to help Kenyans understand how many elephants were dying and what it meant that these elephants are being slaughtered all across the country. It was very tragic. These are not just animals that have no name, no identity. These are elephants that are so like human beings. They have families and children and relationships with each other. So the impact on Kenyans was quite strong. There was a lot of trauma being felt in the country. She asked me what she could do to help. And I said, I'd really like you to be the face of this campaign, Hands Off Our Elephants. And she said, what do I need to do? And I said, well, you need to go out there and talk about elephants. And she said, but the last time I saw an elephant, I was 5 years old. And in a way, what she was saying is what most Kenyans have experienced. Most Kenyans have never seen an elephant. The national parks are really reserved for tourists. And most people don't know that much about our own wildlife. Even though we have it all over our branding and our identity as a nation, most people don't know that much about these animals. And I said to her, then we have to go to the national parks. Will you come? And she did. We flew to Amboseli, which is one of the most beautiful national parks south of the country with 1,700 elephants that are all known by name as individuals. We drove around in the back of a Land Rover, meeting these elephants and talking about them and their personalities, their individual personalities. And at the end of the day, we were with the Minister for Wildlife at the time, this wonderful lady called Judy Wahungu. And Judy kept saying, Paula, we need to hurry this up. The First Lady has to go back before dark. And after saying this about 3 times, Margaret Kenyatta turned to Judy and she said, Judy, do you get into trouble if you're late? Or, and Judy said, yes, I get into a lot of trouble. And she said, well, I don't. And that's it. Staying overnight. And it was just fantastic. We stayed overnight. It was really impromptu. She didn't even have a toothbrush. She said, we're staying overnight. We went to a hotel. We stayed overnight. She just started watching elephants. And I really got that I've studied elephants my whole life. I feel so privileged now because even though she is the First Lady, she hasn't had that opportunity. And so she spent the whole morning watching elephants from her balcony of her hotel room. And at breakfast, she said to me, have you ever noticed that elephants walk in groups? They're always in groups. Yeah, because they're families. That's the matriarch, the grandmother, and all their daughters and their children. And she was just so moved. She named one of the elephants after her late father. And she became a fierce champion, and she continues to be a fierce champion for elephants. It was just the most amazing person to work with, the only First Lady in the world who made wildlife a subject of her, impact during her time as a First Lady.
Well, I'm so appreciative of the work that you and the First Lady both do. And for our listeners who are just learning about Dr. Kahumbu's work, Dr. Kahumbu has spent more than 30 years learning about elephants and helping to protect them from poachers and extinction. We know that you're an expert on the African savanna elephant, and you're part of National Geographic's series that's produced by James Cameron, Secrets of the Elephants. What can viewers expect from this beautiful series? And we know that you've traveled the world to shoot the series. Asia, the Congo, you're in the rainforest, you're in the deserts. How did something like this kind of come to completion? What were some of the challenges that you faced in making this important work?
Well, Christina, elephants are among the most studied animals in the world and probably the most photographed and the most filmed in the world. And everyone thinks they know a lot about these magnificent animals. And the truth be told, it's usually the same groups of elephants that get filmed again and again in certain parts of Africa where they're really visible. In Secrets of the Elephants, we intentionally go out to show you elephants that have never been filmed before and to show you behaviors that have never been seen before. New things that are new to science that maybe will surprise you and make you feel even more in awe and wonder of these incredible beings. Elephants are so intelligent. They are problem solvers. They are adaptable. They live in all these different habitats, from tropical rainforest where it rains most of the day to the driest of deserts where they spend all day walking to try and find a sip of water. And because they live in such very different environments and habitats, they have all kinds of different challenges, and how they solve the problems in order to survive is really what this series is about.
This is amazing. They were here long before us, and if they go, that entire wisdom will be lost.
We were blown away ourselves in filming. I mean, I thought I knew a lot about elephants, and everywhere I went, I was just like, wow, look at what's happening. I've never seen anything like this before. I didn't want to leave. I fell in love with every elephant we came across throughout the shooting. It was really, really amazing.
So before we go to commercial break, what can we tell our listeners? What's one thing that stood out to you the most? What's one fact that you learned about elephants where you're like, I've been doing this for decades now, and I had no idea that this was the case?
Well, elephants, like humans, have culture. They have found ways of living in these different places, and they transmit that knowledge from generation to generation, just the way we do in our different cultures. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll finish playing the Blackest Questions with Dr. Paula Kahumbu. Okay, we're back. We are playing the Blackest Questions with Dr. Paula Kahumbu. You are doing incredibly well. You're 1 for 1. Are you ready for question number 2?
I'm scared now.
They just get a teeny bit harder, but I think you've got it. Okay, question number 2. This place is located in central Kenya and is home to the last 2 remaining northern white rhino in the world. This place also made history back in 2015 when its employees used armed guards 24 hours a day to protect an endangered species. What is the name of this place?
It's one of my most favorite places in the world. It's Olpejeta Conservancy.
You are correct. The Olpejeta Conservancy covers more than 90,000 acres and started as a cattle ranch in the 1940s. It became a conservancy in the 1980s when poaching was having a significant impact on the animal population. It's home to all members of the Big Five game, which are lions, Cape buffalo, African elephants, leopards, and rhinoceroses. Is that rhinoceroses or rhinoceri?
Rhinoceroses.
Is it better? Rhinoceroses? Okay. Or rhinoceros?
Right. Rhinos.
Rhinos. Let's just say rhinos, right? And the world's last male northern white rhino, Sudan is his name, lived and was protected at the conservancy until he died in 2018. So security is a huge undertaking, and planes, drones, dogs, and armed patrols are all used to keep the animals safe from poachers. And if any of our listeners are planning a trip to the continent, you can visit the Olpejeta Conservancy. So, Dr. Kahumbu, you got this one right. Have you ever worked at this conservancy?
I have not worked there, but I've visited many times and I filmed there. I produced my own TV series, Wildlife Warriors, which is a series that shines a light on African conservation role models at the front line. And we went to Olpejeta to film the last 2 northern white rhinos. I did this specifically because there's been quite a number of films made about the northern white rhinos, but most of those films have never been seen in Africa. They've certainly not been seen in Kenya. And yet those 2 amazing beings are living in Kenya. And I felt that their story needed to be told from Kenya, from an African perspective. So I looked at the people who take care of them. Most of us are very familiar with the male, gun-toting rangers who are essential when it comes to protecting these endangered animals. They're endangered because they have huge horns, and those horns are like literally as if you were walking around with a block of gold stuck on your face. It's that valuable. So anybody who wants will try and come and kill them. But I was interested in the women rangers who are really key. They do a lot of the monitoring. They know each individual rhino from their notches on their ears. They have a different and softer way of doing conservation, which I really, really loved. And I spent, I think 2 weeks just, in that environment with the men, with the dogs that are used to track the poachers, and the women who are patrolling without weapons out there in the wild. Such courage, such determination, and such incredible commitment to conservation. It was such a phenomenal experience.
That absolutely is. Now, so many of our listeners are based in the U.S. from the demographics I've been told. But how can we, in places like Brooklyn and the Bronx and Detroit and L.A., how can we help some of these endangered animals? What should we be doing from the States or other countries not in Kenya to help with this issue?
Well, I think people everywhere can help save Africa's wildlife. I'm so thrilled that the production of Secrets of the Elephants allowed me, a Kenyan, to be the voice of elephants, not just African elephants, but African and Asian elephants, because wherever they are in peril. In the rainforest, they've been persecuted for hundreds of years. In the desert, climate change is making their lives almost impossible. In Kenya, human-elephant conflict. In Asia, so many people crammed in elephants and humans living cheek to jowl. We need support for elephants wherever they are. And if you save elephants, you can save all those habitats and environments where elephants live and all the other animals that live with them. I think that we need to use this series to fall in love with them, of course. Tell our friends, tell our families, share this incredible love and awe and wonder about elephants, but also to support those conservation groups on the ground at the grassroots. In Kenya alone, there are 277 conservation areas owned and managed by local indigenous people. Most people around the world don't know this. And if you think about it, Africans have been protecting wildlife for eons. We evolved with them, and our wildlife is doing better than wildlife on all other continents, which means that we've been doing a really great job. But now the threats to our wildlife are coming from external forces, whether it's demand for ivory and rhino horn coming from the east, or whether it's climate change coming from the west. What we're having is a situation where, despite all our best efforts in Africa, it's hard to protect these habitats, landscapes, and animals with those threats coming from way beyond our borders. So I really want people to support those conservationists at the grassroots, the communities who are living with these animals. They are sacrificing every single day. I meet people who lose their crops or lose their livestock, or sometimes their children can't go to school because there are elephants around them. Those are the people who are the real conservationists. Those are the people we should be supporting.
We are sitting here talking with Dr. Paula Kahumbu. Please be sure to check out her series, Wildlife Warriors. We're going to take a quick commercial break, come back and play a little bit more of the Blackest Question. And we're back. We're playing the Blackest Questions with Dr. Paula Kahumbu. We're also learning a lot about elephants in this episode, and I absolutely love it. Dr. Kahumbu, are you ready for question number 3?
I'm ready.
This is the confidence that I love. I love it. You're doing incredibly well. Okay, here we go. Question number 3. This book was released in 1964 and was the first English language novel to be published by an East African. It told the story of 2 brothers following the Mau Mau uprising. What is the name of this book?
Oh my goodness. Now you've stumped me.
The answer is Weep Not Child.
Oh.
Weep Not Child was written by Kenyan author Ngugi wa Thiong'o. It was the first of his many novels. And as I mentioned, the plot focused on the life during the Mau Mau uprising, which was the rebellion of Kenyan people against white British colonizers. The book has 18 chapters and is divided into 2 parts. So, who is your favorite Kenyan author? I know, lots of people don't like to answer questions about favorites, but do you have time to read, novels and literature about Kenya? And if so, who's your favorite Kenyan author?
I do read a lot, actually. Most of it's scientific stuff, but I do read novels. And my favorite Kenyan author is Yvonne Owuor. You need to look her up. She's amazing. Her latest book is called Dragonfly Sea, and she writes beautifully about indigenous peoples. In this particular episode, it's about the local people of an island called Lamu, which is off the East African coast. And Yvonne is a friend of mine for a long time, and I'm just so thrilled that she's now an award-winning author, and she's even writing for National Geographic.
Oh, I love it. I love it. There's something about having friends who are authors who you've known for a very long time. I have a college classmate, Tiffany Unique, who's a fiction writer from St. Thomas, a fiction writer and a poet. And when we met the first week of school, she says, I'm Tiffany, I'm from St. Thomas, and I'm going to be a writer. And then to go and pick up her books from a bookstore, she's written 2 novels and countless books on poetry. It is something extra special to read a novel or a book from a friend.
It really is.
It's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. And so for your scientific reading, are you primarily reading about, say, climate change, or are you reading about animals? When you sort of sit down to really absorb new information, what's primarily your focus?
I read a lot of the latest science and research on our African wildlife, and of course a lot of research on climate change as well. I'm really interested in teaching, so I'm constantly updating myself on knowledge that I can use to create educational programs for children in particular. So I think that the future for conservation really lies in the hands of children. We need to make this information accessible to them at such an early age before they become influenced by all the other things that when I was a child, I was influenced by our colonial educational system. Our children today don't even have environment or conservation in their curriculum. So I have this amazing program for children. I was gifted 30 acres of land, as my organization was gifted 30 acres of land. And we have a big old tent. We show films and we take children out into the wild, into the wilderness. We're right adjacent to a national park. There are rhinos, lions, giraffes, and all kinds of amazing animals around us. And children are unleashed to go and explore.
In this expedition, I've learned that wildlife are important to the community, to us children, and to the wild.
And find the dung and signs of animals, to identify plants and to do research. Some of these children are as young as 5 up to about 15 years old. And I'm always looking for creative ways of helping these children to explore for themselves and discover for themselves, not be lectured to, which is really the typical education system. I want them to find, question, and interpret nature themselves through science and art and everything else in between. That what we're seeing is kids with incredible self-confidence coming out of this. They're coming out with all kinds of creative new ideas and ways of sharing their knowledge. And I suppose the thing that I'm most impressed with is the incredible generosity that I see from these children. They are from rural areas, they are from very poor backgrounds, and they feel so privileged that it's unfair. They've told me they feel it's unfair that they get the chance to come out with scientists and do things hands-on, which is how it was for me when I was a child. And that's why I want to give it back to them. And they feel that it's not fair that they, at the age of 10, have this incredible chance and privilege, and they want to share it with other children. They want to not only watch films, they want to make their own films. And I asked them why, and they said, because we want other children to have a chance to learn from us as well.
That quest of learning and sharing is just absolutely beautiful. We've got to take a quick commercial break. I'm sitting here just awed and inspired by Dr. Paula Kahumbu, educator and also documentarian, and we must check out her show on National Geographic. Okay, Dr. Kahumbu, we are back. We're ready to play question number 4 in the Blackest Questions. How you feeling?
Oh, no, I don't want to hear any more questions.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Question number 4. This Kenyan visual artist is known for her paintings, sculpture, film, and performance work, and her work often focuses on the female body. She was born in Kenya, but moved to New York City in her 20s. Who is she?
Is she Wangeshi Mutu?
You are correct. Her work has been showcased in some of the most prestigious museums and galleries in the world. Wangeshi Mutu has been described as an Afrofuturist, and she also highlights femininity and the violence and misrepresentation experienced by Black women in contemporary society. The solo exhibit that I mentioned at the New Museum in New York City contains more than 100 pieces of her work. So when you're out in nature, I mean, nature is a canvas in and of itself, but do you get to museums? And if so, how do you spend your free time, and what artists sort of inspire you in your personal life?
You know, funnily enough, I actually know Wangeshi, and I spend time with her and her sister, actually. In Kenya, we have a few museums, and I used to be involved with the museums, and I was much more interested in the science side of things. But a lot of our interpretation of science is the communication of science. It was powerfully done through art. And if you think about it, film is a form of art as well, so documentary filmmaking. And I work with artists in Kenya and beyond Kenya as well. I'm constantly looking for ways to bring this to children as well, because art is such an interesting way of learning and expressing yourself. So, you know, Wangeshi, when you talked about Wangeshi just now, it just reminded me of the things we do with children where they collect items from nature and they create their own artistic depictions with twigs and leaves and mud, whatever they find, feathers. They create.
And she uses so much mud and feathers, you know, in a lot of her work as well.
Yeah, I hadn't even
mud.
thought about that. So, yeah, I think art is a very interesting. Africans, I mean, if you look at African fashions, you look at African body piercings and body markings. If you look at even the homes and architecture in Africa, there's art and science in everything. It's really something which is totally underappreciated, and something that I've started to look at much more carefully and to get children to explore with us as well. Because I was just raised in such a traditional educational system where we just look to the West for everything. And now I'm looking locally and like, oh my goodness, look at a mud
Right.
hut. It is such a
Yes.
genius design, really.
Yes. The ingenuity, where so many people have taken natural resources, they themselves are conservationists. There's no waste. I think of this sometimes when looking at the U.S. South as well. And it's absolutely stunning what people have been able to do, without quote unquote formal Western education, with using everything that surrounds them as part of a foundation. And I really do think what I love about your work is, not just as a documentarian / artist and a scientist and a conservationist, but really as an educator, because what is the point of putting all these pieces together the way you are without sharing it with the next generations, especially the next generation of Kenyans, who will soon be leaders of the country before we know it.
Exactly. Well, what I really love is that when I started doing documentary work, I was thinking so much about the science, and I had to be taught not to just be too scientific and to talk to an audience of ordinary people. And now I really understand and appreciate when we talk of art as well. There's the music. There is the stories that are in our elders, our grandparents, and the way that we tell stories. I'm just seeing so much creativity everywhere, and it also explain why Africans are so innovative. They're so used to merging their engineering and their art and science and bringing all these things together without thinking about it in boxes, which is how I was educated. Art is over there and you do arts or you do sciences. We were never taught that these two things could go together. So I'm so excited about...
I'm excited.
The new
I'm
story
excited for your work. I'm excited for what you're doing. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll learn more with Dr. Paula Kahumbu, educator, documentarian, wildlife warrior. You were doing so much. I'm super inspired. I can't wait to reflect on this episode. We'll take a quick commercial break. We're playing the Blackest Questions with my new favorite, Dr. Paula Kahumbu. And we're back. We're playing the Blackest Questions with Dr. Kahumbu. Doctor, are you ready for question number 5?
I'll try.
Okay. We're doing incredibly well. And I think our listeners are learning a ton, especially about Kenya and wildlife conservation and what we can be doing and should be doing. Okay, question number 5. Athletes from Kenya have won a combined of 103 Olympic medals, and they're from just 2 sports. What are these 2 sports?
Well, definitely long distance running, marathon running. I'm guessing it's going to be marathons and the 10,000 meters.
So in these categories, we're going to say track and field is one.
Okay.
And so that's the marathon running. And the other is boxing.
Oh.
That was a surprise to me, too. So Kenya began competing in the Olympics in 1956 and has been to every Summer Olympics since then, except for 1976 and 1980, when they were boycotting the Games, both times for political reasons. In 1980, it was actually boxer Muhammad Ali who traveled to Kenya and convinced the nation to boycott the Games being held in Moscow to protest the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. Kenya has won 35 gold medals, 42 silvers, and 36 bronzes. So the country started competing in the Olympics before you were born. Did you grow up ever following the Games, or did you play sports? And does that factor into any of your work?
I did. I played a lot of sports. I was a swimmer, and I was also a volleyball player. It does factor a lot in what I do, because I think that our health and the state of our environment are interlinked. So I do work with athletes in Kenya to convey and to communicate the conservation message in sports, because you can't be an elite athlete if your air is unhealthy or if your food is unhealthy.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It's completely interconnected.
And some of our conservation areas have become very important locations for marathons and ultra marathons, which I really support.
Well, so many people who I talk to who's, don't know much about the continent, so they say, but they always know about, the excellence of Kenyans in track and field. And I think that it's so important that you make this connection to our natural environment and sports. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to play the Black Lightning Round, which I think you're going to love. Okay, we're back. Final games with Dr. Paula Kahumbu, conservationist, documentarian, educator, artist, you name it. Are you ready, Dr. Kahumbu? Now, these questions, the first thing that comes to mind, you answer. There's no right or wrong answers, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Do you prefer the mountains or the beach?
The beach.
Your favorite animal to see if you're on safari?
Elephants.
I think I knew the answer to that one. What animal have you yet to see that you hope to see? Or have you seen everything?
Polar bears.
Besides Kenya, what's your favorite country to visit on the continent? I'm not trying to start beef, just curious.
Ecuador.
Oh, okay. Do you prefer to plant a tree or pick fresh flowers?
Plant a tree for sure.
Okay. And lastly, all the seasons, what's your favorite?
Spring.
Oh, so much promise and so much hope. I've been talking to Dr. Paula Kahumbu. Before we go, I want to remind all of our listeners to catch the National Geographic series, Secrets of the Elephant. And as Dr. Kahumbu mentioned, let's support the grassroots groups that are dedicated to supporting vulnerable animals. Dr. Kahumbu, you were fantastic. I've learned a ton. I'm completely inspired. Please promise us you'll come back and tell us more about your new series and your new documentaries as they progress in the years to come.
Thank you so much. I really hope you love watching Secrets of the Elephant, and I'd love to hear from you as well.
National Geographic series, Secrets of the Elephant. Thank you all again for listening to The Blackest Questions. The show is produced by Sasha Armstrong and Jeffrey Trudeau, and Regina Griffin is our director of podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and you can find more at the GRIO Black Podcast Network on the GRIO app, website, and YouTube.
We started this podcast to talk about not just what Black writers write about, but how.
Well, personally, it's on my bucket list to have one of my books banned. I know that's probably bad, but I think...
Ooh, spicy.
They were yelling N-word, go home. And I was looking around for the N-word because I knew it couldn't be me because I was a queen.
But I'm telling people to quit this mentality of identifying ourselves by our work, to start to live our lives, and to redefine the whole concept of how we work and where we work and why we work in the first place.
My biggest strength throughout my career has been having incredible mentors, and specifically Black women.
I've been writing poetry since I was like 8. I've been reading Langston Hughes and James Baldwin and Maya Angelou and so forth and so on since I was like a little kid.
Like the banjo was blackity black, right? Mm-hmm. For many years. Everybody knew.
Because sometimes I'm just doing some Sam that because I just want to do it.
An honor to be here. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Keep shining bright. And like you said, we gonna keep writing black.
As always, you can find us on the GRIO app or wherever you find your podcasts.